Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah and I live in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And normally I talk about like knitting and crafting a lot. So I thought today, since it's been a little while since I talked about that sort of thing, that I'm gonna take a look at all the stuff that I have in all my project bags here. We're gonna do like a little WIP roundup of like everything that I've probably worked on in the, well, anything that I've started or worked on in the past couple years, and like what I intend to do with them. So there's some on my table over here, there's some on the floor. I've got blankets, I've got summer tees, I've got, there's a pair of mittens in there, some socks, and mostly what I've been knitting in the past few years is a lot of sweaters. So there'll be a lot of interesting sweaters to look at too. Okay, so why don't we get started with like the oldest one, which is in this giant plastic bag. Very glamorous project bag. There's a lot of yarn in here. And this is, I believe I've shown this before, but it was much smaller when I showed it last time. And that is my, this is, what's the pattern called again? This is the Weekender blanket, which is a crocheted hexagon blanket. I've got my pattern and hook in here. And I can't remember if this is a paid for or free pattern, but this is where I am at. And what I've been doing recently, the last time that I worked on this, I have a whole bunch of different colors that I'm working on at once. And so what I've been doing is, kind of show here, the bottom, what I've started doing is instead of working, like making a whole lineup of a color arrangement of which hexagon is going to be next, I've just been sort of randomly picking up a color and then going across, putting it in a few places across the bottom here, and then going with a different color and doing the same thing. And that's been working pretty good. I'm doing like a random placement of color, just trying to have it be sort of evenly distributed all the way across. When I run out of a color, then I'm just not going to use it anymore. I have run out of some colors, and I've reintroduced some new ones with the yarns that I like better that I'm working with this. This is a combination, this is mostly superwash wool. Let me find here. So these are sort of my backup skeins that I have here. There's some alpaca in this. There's some superwash. Let me find here. It's mostly like DK weight. There's a few, I don't have the label for this one, but I think this was a wool that I just found at the store, probably Joe's Yarn Garden in Stony Plain. That was about the right weight. I think I'm working like sport weight to DK. And I believe this is a superwash. And then I've most of my colors are Drops Charisma. I've been really enjoying working with this one. And then I also have a few colors of the Drops Nepal, which I do find a little bit thick. This is more of like an Aran weight. And this is a wool alpaca blend. And I'm not a big alpaca fan. It's just a personal preference. So these are just some of the examples of what I've got going on into this blanket. And yeah, so I haven't been working on this a lot in the past, but it has definitely grown. I should pick it up. I've been on a bit of a crochet kick lately with new blanket projects. So maybe I'll be inspired to go back to these hexagons. So fold that back up here, put that back in my crinkly wrinkly bag. Okay, so that's blanket number one. Let's do another blanket. think I have 4 blanket projects going on right now that I have recently started. This one is fully influenced by a YouTuber that I started watching a few months ago. Cheyenne Barton was working on a blanket project on one of her, like, she does these Twitch live streams, and I watched one, and she was using this yarn, which is the cinnamon swirl cake from Caron, in a different colorway, and using this same pattern, and I really enjoyed it. So I went and stared at all the Caron cakes and ended up going with this sort of rainbow colorway, which is called Tropical Breeze. I think they're all sort of cocktail names. I don't know. Anyway, so this is the 6-Day Sweetheart Blanket by, I believe, Betty McKnit. It's a free online pattern, and it's this like 7 pointed star. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 7 pointed star, and I'm just letting it go with the variation, and I'm really enjoying it. And you can see that I've been working on this a fair amount in the past few weeks, so it's really growing. I do have, I think I'm on, this is like the 3rd or 4th Caron cake that I've joined onto this, so I am excited to make like this giant blanket with it. And yes, this is acrylic. I decided recently, well, the Caron cakes, really, I know I've been a yarn snob in the past and only worked with natural fibers, and I do tend to continue to do with that, to do that, but the colors got me, the format of the yarn got me, and you can't beat the price point, right? I mean, sometimes it's fine to just have like a, you know, blanket that's gonna last until the end of the world. I don't know. They got me with the color format, what can I say? And so I'm kind of just working this up, because of I picked my hook size based on the yarn, so I ended up going with like a 6mm, and I think I could have probably gone up to a 6.5mm. There are points where it's more dense than others, and I think it's just my crochet tension varies a lot more because I haven't crocheted as much as I have knit over the years. So, but it's a blanket. It doesn't need to fit anybody other than just being giant. So that's one that I've been working on. And that one's just living in this tote bag because I took it to the lake the last time we went and was working on it there. Let's go for another old-ish crochet blanket. I had started and finished one of these. This is like a granny stitch, but like a ripple blanket. And I started and finished one of these using an Advent that I had, Advent minis in naturally dyed yarn by Kalia the Luddite. And then I added in some other like rustic yarns to it in similar colors that I, you know, wanted to use up. And I had enough, I had accumulated, turns out I had enough like sport weight yarns just hanging around that I could basically make a whole second one. So as soon as I finished the first one, I started the second one, and the striping rules are a little bit different. On the first one, I just did 2 row stripes of all the colors, and on this one, I'm doing sort of bigger stripes. So I started with, I think this is 6 stripes on the border here, 2, 4, yeah, 6 stripes of this nice chocolatey, like natural sheep shade. And then I've been alternating sort of 4 rows of one color, and then in between 2 rows of like a neutral. So, and I'm really enjoying how this is going. And what I'm using, this is more of the Kalia the Luddite that I accumulated. So that's like this lovely acid color, and that's also this peachy color. And then this is some Jamieson and Smith. I had some random skeins that I had ordered just to see what colors I liked. And so I incorporated those. I also have this lovely skein is one that I brought, that a friend bought me in from Knit City in Montreal a couple years ago. So I put that in there. This green is some Rauma phenol yarn that I had a couple skeins of. I had bought with the plan of making it like a colorwork sweater, but I ended up deciding that I'm just gonna put it into this blanket instead. And then, yeah, some other random sheepy shades and other sort of fun colors that I'm putting together in that one. And I have a whole basket of yarn upstairs in our living room den area that I'm sort of pulling from. Oh, and the pattern is, I found like a free ripple Afghan pattern somewhere that I think it was for a worsted weight. So I figured out the stitch count and how big I wanted the peaks to be. And I basically just kind of made up the stitch count from there. So I used the methodology from that and just adapted it for the size of yarn that I'm using, which is more like heavy fingering to sport weight. So that's a very big contrast to the rainbow star blanket that I'm working on right now, which also has some granny stitch moments in it as well. It sort of alternates that. Put that over here. Okay, other blankets. This one's also been sort of a long-standing piece. Some of you, well, you probably will see this on my channel, that I had started this when I was still recording old videos. And this is a pattern that I had developed myself, and I still haven't published. I still, have in mind to do it, but I have this idea that I need to have like a finished blanket to go with it. So at the moment I have here 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, and then the makings of a 12th square here. Or I think I also have, well, that could be like 13 squares. And also I decided I had some fun, the last time I was really working on this, I had some fun making some blocks. So I have even more than this. So this is like for one blanket vibe. And then I have developed, I got excited. I had some friends sort of test out the pattern, and I got excited about some of the combinations that they were making. So then I was like, ooh, and also using some of the same yarns that I was using in that crochet ripple blanket. I got excited and started coming up with some different color combos with like a really just sort of different vibe to it. So the ideal plan is this is going to be the like baby blanket size version, which is all has cream backgrounds for everything. And then we'll have this like very traditional quilt border with the little, keystone corner. And then this will be, vibe number 2 is like just borderless quilt pieces. So that one's not as far along, so I don't know that I'll try to finish that in order to like release the pattern, but these give some ideas for like different color ideas, color combination. And I have another sort of piece in here that I'm excited about, which has, some other vibes to it. And yeah, so a lot of the yarns that I'm using for this are the same ones that I was using for the Granny Ripple blanket. So a lot of, well, some Jamieson and Smith, some Rauma Phenol. I had about 5 skeins of this pink, which is one of their like newer mixed heathered colors, which I really like. And then also some more of the Kalia the Luddite, like naturally dyed sport weight, which is on like a Briggs & Little sport kind of base. Although I think she has hers spun specifically from Alberta sourced wool, but it's the same style of single. Yeah, so I have some various little mini skeins of the same kind of like naturally dyed and natural sheepy kind of colors for that. Oh, and I think this green was a leftover phenol garn from I did the Moon Crush pullover test knit that I did earlier this year, I can't remember, but yeah, this great green from there, so that's in there as well. So yeah, I've been accumulating some leftovers into these kinds of projects as well, which this particular pattern works well. You don't need a lot of any specific color if you only want, like, if you want to make each block like different color stories, then you only need like 12 grams for the points if you want them all to match. And I might even make a couple squares where they're a little more scrappy so that people can see what that looks like. So maybe one day I'll actually finish that and make a pattern. Okay, and then I think this is my last current blanket project. I have accumulated some other yarns from Michaels, Caron cakes, etc. For future blanket projects, but this is what's currently being worked on, so that's what we're going to talk about. And of course, oh, I'm like in the middle of a row here. So this was Mckenzie of M to the 3rd just released this Bizitos blanket pattern, which is a garter stitch striped. I'm just going to talk while I finish this row so it's more presentable. The Bizitos blanket, which she released last week, a couple weeks ago, and a few of us in the Discord server. I'm very active in Mckenzie's Discord server. It's like the one that I actually pay attention to, even though I'm in a few. Yeah, so anyway, there were a few of us on that server who tested the pattern, and I got really excited and used it as an excuse to order some more Caron cakes. So this one is an actual just Caron cake. This one's in the pistachio color, which gradiates from this like dark olive all the way up to a light cream, and then alternating that with some Lion Brand woolies in the color Canyon Sunset. And I'm really enjoying, I had recently made a sweater where I did this sort of like, you know, swampy green matched with a pink, and I really enjoyed the vibe. It really reminds me of one of my good friends in Montreal, so I thought I'd do it again for this project. There's no intended recipient in mind for this like baby blanket sized one, and just to note that I think both of these wools are 80% acrylic and 20% wool, so they're actually quite soft. They're not as squeaky as some of the other acrylics, and I find the quality of the acrylic in the Caron cakes to be quite pleasant, as opposed to, say, you know, the classic Fentex scratchy nylon. So this is the Bizitos blanket. So far, I've gotten quite far. I've been working on it this past week, and it's really grown. Like, I think I picked it up on this weekend and have just been working on it in the evenings. And it's really grown, and I'm really enjoying just knitting forever and having these lovely like blocks of color just appear. So, and it's unbelievably squishy. So this one is knit up on 6.5 millimeter, and it's meant for like Aran chunky yarns. Let's see here. I believe the Caron cake is like an Aran weight, and then the Woolies is more of like a true worsted. And they have some really nice colors in the Woolies these days. Not that I like this sort of heathery pink going on. So, and then in the Caron cake that I'm using for the other blanket, I have noticed there has been some knots, but it does seem like they really try to keep the color order consistent, so it doesn't necessarily jump to a whole different part of the color sequence, which is nice that they've put that forethought into it. Because that's the thing that's annoying when you get a knot in a skein of yarn, is like, especially a variegated yarn, that it's just gonna like totally jump to something else and it's gonna mess up your color sequence. So, all right. Next, let's just grab something at random. Let's do this one. What is in here? Ooh. Okay, so this is, I started this a few years ago. I don't know exactly the date, and I hope you don't mind that I'm not getting specific. I use Ravelry pretty consistently, and so if you are curious about that, I will put a link to my Ravelry profile, which is like my same username, Prairie Fiber Witch, in the description box. And I'll try to also put like start and end dates for each in there as start dates. Well, nothing's finished, so there wouldn't be an end date. I might put start dates in the description box. I usually try to put a lot of details down there, so we'll see how it goes. So, yes, this has been officially cast on for a while, but this is about as far as I have gotten with it. I think I might, since starting the sweater, I have acquired a new set of interchangeable needles, which includes some smaller tips so that I can do sleeves in the round without having to magic loop, which I find magic loop, I always end up with like ladders on my sleeve. Well, not really ladders, but like a crease on the sleeve where it's like this fold line. And especially with color work, it doesn't work so great. So I might switch these onto there when I feel like working on it again. And so the color work is really subtle in this because of the colors that I chose. This is using some Alberta Yarn Project yarns that I purchased a few months before they stopped that project. And so I have, this one is dyed with this is called Mint Tansy Green, so it's dyed with tansy. And then the yellow, I believe, is also a tansy color. It's just called tansy yellow. So I'm sure this green has been modified in some way to make it green. And Kalia the Luddite was part of the Alberta Yarn Project. So she makes these yarns, and both of these are made, this is dyed on their heirloom lace fin base from 2018, which would have been a local Alberta yarn. So this one says, Fin sheep in the city of Fort Saskatchewan, Alberta, that they graze in Peter T. Ream Historic Park. So that's pretty cool. And then the main color for this is, I believe, the called for color of tuku wool fingering in the pattern. Part of why this has just been sitting in this state of like just part of a sleeve done is probably that it's on double points, but I think it's also partly that the pieces are like knit separately and then sewn together, which I'm not super jazzed about. I'm contemplating And also, like, I think the body of the sweater is like knit flat instead of just steeked. I can't remember that. That maybe that detail's a little different. I can't remember, but it was just like, you know, not super exciting. So I might just frog what I have here, or leave this for a while, work on the body of the sweater, and then pick up and knit the sleeves down, because I've done that construction before and I much prefer it. And I was also contemplating making this a pullover instead of a cardigan, because I've made another all over colorwork cardigan in this style, and I really haven't worn it. But the pullovers that I have that are all over colorwork, I wear a ton of. So I might make that change as well. So that's just sort of sitting until I have some brain space to deal with that. And you might notice most of my project bags are the sweater size from the Fat Squirrel. I'm a big fan of Amy Beth's bags and of Amy Beth's podcasts. Okay, so let's see what we have in this one. What do we have here? Ah, yes! This is a DRK Everyday Sweater that I'm knitting out of Briggs & Little Sport. I started this project when I was sick with the vid earlier this year. That was the end of March. And you can tell the sweater that I'm wearing is mustard, and this is mustard, so I'm pretty sure I'm going to wear it. The body is like all done, so all I need to do is put on some sleeves, which now that it's getting to be fall and sort of sweater season again, I might actually go and, you know, just knit a bunch of sleeves on stuff that's waiting for sleeves, because this isn't the only one. Oh yeah, and this is out of Briggs & Little Sport, which is this is my like ride or die yarn. Briggs & Little Sport, you can't argue with it. This I mostly buy at Joe's Yarn Garden. There are a couple places in town that carry the Briggs & Little. I think the Little Blue Fiber Studio also carries it. Fern School of Craft, she carries, I think, more of the Regal for weaving projects. And like, you can't argue the price on this, shipped all the way from the Maritimes, is $7.99. So that's... And it's a really nice rustic yarn. It's not the softest, but I've gotten used to the feel of actual wool, so it's plenty soft for me. And the other sweater that I knit from this pattern, I was like my most worn sweater of last winter, so I feel like this will be a firm favorite coming up. And that one, I don't know what needles I'm using. I have taken the needles out of this, so I'll have to rely on my information on Ravelry. That's part of why I always keep my Ravelry up to date, is because I can't be bothered to like write things down when it comes to knitting projects. So yeah, I'll figure out from there. What do we have next? Let's just go for sweaters that need arms. Oh, this one has a bonus of like double project bags. Okay. And there's a whole bunch of needles in here. Interesting. Okay. Let's talk about the yarn for this. Ooh, I do have the tags. So this is yarn that I've had in my stash since probably, I think it's like 2008, 2009, when this was when I was living in Montreal. My brother was working at a yarn store. I was working at an ad agency at the time, still as a graphic designer. And there was like news that this yarn store was going to be going out of business and had this huge sale. They were on the South Shore somewhere, and my brother like rode his bike over to the store a couple times, and I asked him to buy me something that was interesting. So he bought me this mohair from this company called L'Ensorcelaine, which on the information here, so it was a mohair farm in Saint-Aimé, Quebec. It has their telephone number, and that's like all, it just gives you, oh, it does have like gauge information, and it tells you how many grams, but not like what the yardage is, which is interesting. So this has just been hanging out in my stash for a long time because I liked it, but I didn't know what to knit with it. And since it was it's like a, I mean, it's sort of a sport weight, but because it's mohair, I think you knit it up more at like a DK gauge. And since it was a yarn that like hadn't existed in the commercial world for a while, there weren't necessarily patterns for it, and I didn't want to like knit it a bunch of times and then rip it out. So I just sort of hung on to it. And I was test knitting for Jacqueline Cieslak. She's the one who I've test knit for the most. And this was, she was working on a pattern, I think this was last year sometime, the cottage cardigan, which she released. And that was a collaboration with Rowan Lane Yarn. I think she has a similar, I think it's more like a sport weight mohair that she has been naturally dyeing. So it was to go with that base. And I thought, oh, well, that sounds similar to this yarn that I've had forever. And so I joined the test knit, and then mine ended up, my gauge was off. And so it ended up way larger than it needed to be. And so I kind of got stymied and I didn't end up finishing. And so, a few months later, I like ripped it all out and restarted it. And this is how far I got. So the body is done. I just need to pick up and do the sleeves, which, you know, maybe this fall I will get inspired to be like, I should just finish all these sweaters that I have that only need sleeves. And so then I'll have a whole sleeve fest. This is me like trying to manifest sleeve ambitions. So I think this just has, this must be my frogged yarns, but I'm not sure what this is doing in here. I feel like this friend wants to be over in one of these other blanket projects. We'll put it over there. So I'm gonna just rescue that, put all this back in here. Oh, and I mean, this is another Amy Beth bag, and Amy Beth has, in my opinion, I always fall in love with something from her updates. And then this is one that I think I ordered from Art of Yarn in Kelowna, or yeah, they're in Kelowna. Okay, let's add some more. Let's see, what else do we have? Well, let's go for let's do all the big bags. Okay, I'm pretty sure I know what's in this one. And this is a Fawn and the Fox bag, who she doesn't make bags anymore. She doesn't really podcast anymore. But yeah, I was happy to get this in one of her later updates. I had always liked these tree bags. And this is not much, but some of a little summer t-shirt. This is out of, let's see here. What is the pattern that I'm using for this? Oh, and I have like 3 patterns in here. Do I even need all these? Well, that one I need. Trying to pack efficiently, and it's like, that's not actually with the pattern that it should be. And I don't think I need this one anymore, so we'll just put that over there. Okay, this is the pattern that I'm doing. And it is the Air Tee, which doesn't have the designer name on here. the Air Tea by Haley Smedley. Okay, who I will put her information definitely in the description box. I don't recall her Instagram name off the top of my head, but so far I started this on my trip to Montreal this summer, and basically you knit this panel sideways and then pick up stitches and do some short rows to do the shaping down, and that's about as far as we've got. And when I'm doing short row shaping, I'll just show you what I've started doing for short row shaping is I just put a marker every time I turn so that I can keep track of how many turns I've got. I have a real problem of like trying to use markers or trying to write down where I am because I sometimes forget to actually make the tick, or I always like, did I actually remember to do it? So then I just find it easier to mark it on my knitting and read it that way. And then I can count it and recount it however many times that I like. And for this one, I am using the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk. And this color is called Silk Olive. This great scummy olive green. And I had used this for a project earlier this spring that I test knit. That was the Bygone blouse for Lydia Morrow. And I really loved working with this yarn, like, and the resulting fabric is so nice that I immediately wanted another t-shirt made from it. And I also have, when I went to Montreal, I also bought another quantity to make another t-shirt of this. So I might make more than one of these. And the reason I decided to use this pattern was I saw Mel of Cozy Cardigans. She made I think she test knit this pattern. And the version that she made was really great. She made a cropped version instead of like an oversized tee. I really liked how that looked, even though we're very different body types, but like the fit that she got with hers was really nice. She didn't do it as oversized as much as in the pattern, so I'm sort of using that as my guide. And this one is being knit on 3mm needles. Oh, and if you're curious, these are my new interchangeables. They are the Kinky Mbari interchangeable, and I really like them because they have the swivel, as well as it's easy to just change out the needles. They come in little kits, so you don't have to buy the whole needle set all at once if you want. You can just buy like a set of 4 of what you want to use. And they have different size cables for the different needles. So like, and then the cables are really nice and flexible. They're not too intense. And yeah, I love them. And I prefer to work with wood needles rather than metal needles. Oh my gosh, we're getting some sunlight. Maybe I'll just modify this a bit. Not that I don't enjoy the like rainbows that we've been experiencing and like the sunshine, but it does get a little bit hard to see. All right, so that's, oh, almost everything from the floor. There is one more Amy Beth bag down here. And this one, this is a test knit also for Lydia Morrow that I think I'm going to not finish. There's nothing, it's not to do with the pattern. It's just, I was excited about this project, and then I thought about, as I've been working on it, I've just been thinking about like, I don't really need this garment in my life. It's one of Lydia's designs. Can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's a test knit for, she's doing this sort of cheerleader style sweater. Sort of has like a V, inter-RCF V here, and then you do duplicate stitch to put an image on the top, and I just I'm not feeling it. This is some of the same yarn that I used for like I said, the Moon Crush pullover test knit that I did either earlier this year or last year, I can't remember. And so these are Tuku wool fingering, and this is Jamieson and Smith in the color 1280, which I dubbed a few years ago. I dubbed it Earth Sea Blue because I was reading the Earth Sea books, and this seemed like the perfect kind of color because it's actually a heather of like a purple and a green and a blue, so it kind of goes different shades as you're looking at it. So it's mostly blue, but then it has these little bits of the hits of these other colors, which actually I really love all three of these together. And I loved this color so much that I bought a cone of it. So that's what I've been using for this sweater. But I just like the idea that I came up with. I enjoyed. I was going to do like a Tolkien illustration of like a mountain and yeah, make it sort of Lord of the Rings. But you know, I don't need that as a garment. So I think I'm just gonna, and I'm not enjoying working flat. Yeah, I don't need to finish that one. So I'm probably gonna frog it, but I thought I'd at least talk about it before I do that. Okay. This is another one that's been sitting around for a while. I think I started this last year, and it's like I have the front piece done. Is this the top? Oh my gosh, I don't even know. How is this? Where's the... Oh, it's all on little pieces of... Okay, so this is a James and Watts pattern. No, I think this is the top. And they had shared on their stories an example that someone had made out of this exact yarn in this exact color. And I loved it so much that I decided I needed to just straight up copy it, which is not something that I really do all that often. And so I have one done and one piece is partially done. So, and this is almost like half done too. Ugh, I should just really finish it. But there's something about, it's sort of knit in small panels. So you have this central square that is knit in the round, and then you pick up off of each one and knit these wedges. And there's something in, and then the front piece is exactly like the back piece. And so there's something about that I just, conceptually it's interesting, but I just haven't been enjoying the knitting of it. But I am excited to have this piece in my wardrobe. So maybe I should just like suck it up and finish it. Even though it's like not really t-shirt time anymore, but I should still finish it. I just should. And this is using Noro Uchiwa in color number 9, which is this great like inky navy variegation, which I really enjoy this format of like giant ball of Noro. And I'm already like, I'm still just on the first one that I got of these. So yeah, I should just finish it. Maybe I'll just finish things for the next little while. Isn't that, it's very aspirational, and I don't know that it'll actually happen, but we can try. I can try. I can put that intention. I would like to finish things. Another thing that I'm working on, which is actually this printed pattern that I found in that other project bag, is another one of these sweaters. This is the Darren Cardigan from the Embody collection by Jacqueline Cieslak. I really like Jackie's patterns and how they fit. And this one I knit out of, this is Ritual Dye's Undine, and this one is in the Forsythia colorway. And I love it so much and have worn it so much that I ended up getting another color of this same yarn, which I don't have the tag with me, so I don't remember the color of it. But yeah, this is the only Ritual Dyes yarn that I have used, and it's a linen cotton blend, and I think I got introduced to it one summer. I was doing I doing a test knit for, I think I was doing a test knit for somebody who was making a piece to be part of like the summer offering from Ritual Dyes in this yarn. And then I was just curious about the yarn, so I ordered some for a cardigan because I thought it would be good. I mean, I work in a library, so like cardigans are required, and having a summer weight cardigan is really great. And like I wear the heck out of this. This is basically my work uniform, is wearing this cardigan with other various clothes that I have. So I definitely need another one. And my color, I feel like my color of the year this year is like this lavender, because I just keep buying it. I bought a lavender raincoat earlier this year. I bought some lavender sneakers. I'm working on a pair of lavender socks that are at work, which I didn't bring home, so I can't show you. I'll show you them when they're finished. So yeah, and now I'm going to have a lavender cardigan. So I started this, I think, in the spring, and I've gotten this far. So it also just needs like some work on it, and I might just take it to work and work on it, because I need to like hit that target, you know, X many inches before doing the ribbing on the body, and that's like a perfect, like, just bring it to work, mindlessly knit for a while, and then suddenly it'll be the right size. So, and this one strangely is not in a project bag, but it probably should be. And I'm sure I have another one somewhere. Okay, next, oh, this one's been sitting around for a while, so let's look at this one. This is a Jen Hewitt project bag. She sometimes releases project bags on her website, and I really enjoy her silk screening that she does. So, yeah. So this is a mitten, and I have one finished mitten. And then when I finished it, I didn't really like, I don't know, there's something about, it feels really big in the hand part somehow. Like the thumb is good, but this hand is already like, it's pretty wide. I don't know. So this one I've been contemplating just like frogging. I don't know if I'll continue it or not. Do I even have the needles in here? Oh, that's where that went. You can tell I just like putting really random skeins in project bags, because here's another like random bit of like fluorescent leftover something or other just hanging out in there. I was looking for that. I even had to repair the sweater that I knit out of this, and I couldn't find this to repair it. So that's how long this has been sitting in there. Oh, look, there's even double points in here. Okay, so this is really like finish your mittens. Finish your mittens. Okay, so this is using, oh look, I had even started number 2. Maybe I should just make this a pair of mittens and they can hang around and I can decide whether I want to actually use them or not. They're really pretty though, right? So this is leftover Phenol, Rauma Phenol PT2. I made a Christmas sweater, a couple, that I finished. Was it last year that I finished that? So it was just in cream and then this great turquoise. And also another, so here's another random skein, a light gray heather that I had of Phenol PT2. And then this is some Briggs & Little Sport that I think I've had in the stash forever, is the third color. And that's mostly, that dark gray just gets used mostly on the cuff and a little bit at the top of the mitten here. This would look better if it were blocked, because it wouldn't be so, you know, these mittens are actually not so bad. I should probably just like steam block them and see how I like them. I don't know. I feel like they're good. Oh, and this is a pattern by Isolde Teague. Let me find it. I think, is it from one of her Knitworthy? Yeah, it's one from one of her Knitworthy collections. And it's like the millet mitten. So, and then there's a picture here of what the tops look like, which is a little bit easier to see than on maybe my mitten here. Easier to see once they're blocked. I think they're fun to knit. I mean, I enjoy knitting this, like, I think this is called like a lice pattern. Or flea pattern. Anyway, they were fun to knit. I knit this one, I think, fairly fast. And my objective was to make new mittens. I mean, obviously it was to make new mittens, but like new everyday mittens. Because the ones that I wear in the winter, which ones do I have in the, so the mittens that I've been wearing in the winter for a long time are a pair of Sanker gloves that I made in 2015. I know because they have the year in them. Or a pair of like worsted weight colorwork mittens, which have sort of shrunk a little bit over the years. They're very tight. So I was hoping to have something that was like sort of in between that in sort of thickness, and something that would be warm, but because, you know, it does get cold in Edmonton in the winter. Yeah, but yeah, I was a little disappointed how baggy these were, but hopefully we can make it work. So I was totally gonna just frog these, but now I'm not sure. Maybe I'll just make the second mitten. I'm giving myself a lot of knitting homework. Have you noticed that? I've noticed that. You should just knit everything. Just finish it all. Right now. Okay. And then I think these are, strangely, the only pair of socks that I have with me. I guess I only have 2 active pairs of socks right now. Mostly for socks, I haven't been knitting a lot of socks because they've been my, oh no. No, that's a lie. There's socks in here too. Okay. So there's 3 pairs of socks total. Okay. So this is mostly for socks. I've been knitting them at work. On my breaks, I just keep a pair of socks in my locker in progress and just work on them when I feel like it on my breaks at work. This one is a skein, a surprise skein that Laura from Tiny Human Knit sent me at Christmas time, which was very kind of her. So I'm not sure, it just said Merry Christmas, Sarah. So I imagine this was like a test colorway for something. So I named them something at some point, but do I remember what I named them? I wonder if I put it on my Ravelry. I don't know. So what I've been doing lately with Laura's sock yarns come in 50-gram skeins, and I have small feet, like 6.5, US 6.5, or like European size 36 most of the time. So I just knit the tube. So what I do is I knit ribbing on one end, and then I knit a full tube, just knit forever until I get to the last few stripes. And I think I do like 3 or 4 stripes at either end, and then I do, yeah, you can see even on this one, I started with 4 stripes, and at the other end it's 3 stripes. But if I didn't tell you that, you wouldn't really have noticed. So I knit the tube, and then I make afterthought socks. So I cut a stitch, and, well, I pick up stitches on either side of halfway down, and then I cut a stitch and unravel one entire round, and then I knit the toes, and then I do the same thing for the heel. Well, not exactly the same. So I pick up on either side of where the heel should be, which is over half the stitches of the tube, cut a stitch, unravel. You cut a stitch in the middle so that you can unravel in either direction to have a little tail. And then you can see on this one, I'm starting at heel. And I've been doing and using contrast yarn for the heels and toes. This one is using a little bit of leftover M to the 3rd in her Mezcla base, which is now discontinued. And you can see on this heel that I ran out of the Mezcla. So I just got another similar brown that I'm popping in there. And so I just have to do the second heel on this sock. And the reason why I started these like at Christmas time, the tube, and the reason that they're still not finished now in September is I should probably just take them back to work so that I can work on them on my breaks, because that's like when I knit socks these days. And then this is another sock that I started. I got invited to a barbecue from someone I knew in Montreal who has moved to Edmonton, and yeah, we were like Twitter friends back in the day, back in the good old Twitter days when it was called Twitter. And yeah, so I needed a comfort knitting project for this afternoon barbecue. And so I started this sock, which is using some, do I have the label? Opal. Opal's like, well, I like German sock yarns. I like the German sock yarns. And I really like, for the like self-patterning ones, I feel like the Opal ones really can't be beat in my mind. And so this is, I think, I can't remember if this was a reissue or somebody just still had some of this colorway, but I remember when I used to work at a yarn store in Montreal, we had this yarn. So that's a good, like 10 years ago now. We had this yarn, and I think this was one of the colorways that I really enjoyed. So when I saw somebody had it, I ordered it. And so it's just been hanging around. So when I was looking for something to just cast on some socks with, I was like, why not make some fun Opal socks? And I'm just making some little shorty socks because I like shorty socks every once in a while. I don't really fold my sock legs down. So it's nice just having some that are short to begin with. So, and yeah, this one I'm working magic loop. I have knit so many socks at this point that I don't really follow a pattern anymore. Other than like I have a little Word document that has some heel turn numbers for from like some of my favorite heel turn patterns, which I think the last one that I would recommend for the heel turn is the How I Roll pattern by Mara Catherine Briner, but I don't think that one's available anymore. So yeah, that was a really good pattern. So if you can get that one. Or there was also Heels by Numbers, but that's also something that doesn't exist anymore, except I think you can probably still access it on the Wayback Machine. I knit, these days, my go-to sock is 72 stitches, and I knit on a 2mm needle, which I believe is a US 0, and I tend to be magic looping these days, one sock at a time, and I like a top-down sock. I just do. And I always do tubular cast on. I think it's sometimes called like an long tail Italian tubular cast on. I think Very Pink Knits has a good tutorial for that. Yeah, and that's just whenever I'm starting in like 1x1 rib, that is how I cast on. So, or even cast off, like on this sweater, you can see, well, I don't know how detailed you can see that, but I also did a tubular cast off for this one. I like how it looks, and I don't mind doing things that are kind of fussy. And at this point, I've figured out how to graft things without having to separate it onto 2 separate needles, which was totally a game changer for me in terms of like not having to get extra equipment to do it. So yeah, that was really helped reduce that. And I think we've officially come to the end of all of my projects that I have hanging around in project bags that have been worked on in the past few years. If you're curious and you want to see the like truly ancient WIPs that like go back to 2009, a couple years ago I did do a WIP roundup where I went through absolutely everything. So if you felt like you wanted more, although the sound isn't great on my old videos, I should say I have had an equipment upgrade. I got a new phone this past month, so that's why I'm doing videos again, is because I feel like I can do a good job now. Yeah. So I hope you like my random, rambly video about all of my WIPs. And yeah, I'm planning to do more videos again. I don't know how regular I will be, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little chat. And yeah, also watch out. I did do like a rambly bullet journal video, which a fair few people have watched, which is pretty cool. So that to me sounds like the equipment upgrade was worth it. And so I might do some more like journaling / fountain pen nerd videos as well. And you can see my home jungle is alive and healthy. All right, well, so thanks for spending some time with me, and I'll see you the next time.